I'm Jon Andersen. Meet my co-hosts, Nick Best and Akim Williams. We're going to have some amazing guests on the show. Buckle up tight, because we're going to be talking about the shit you're not supposed to be talking about. We're going to be discussing anything and everything it takes to become a Legend of Iron.
Legends of Iron is brought to you by MuscleMeds. MuscleMeds is the creator of Carnivore Pure Beef Protein Icing. Beef builds muscle, and Carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein.
Here we go. Welcome to another edition of Legends of Iron. I'm Jon Andersen. My co-host Nick Best and Akim Williams are on a delay right now, but we've got a special guest, so we are not going to hold back. We've got Mr. Gunnar Peterson. Now, this guy has been involved in some of the top with getting some of basically Hollywood's A-list in the best shape of their life. We're talking everything from Mike Tyson, Tom Brady, Sylvester Stallone, the Kardashians, Jennifer Lopez, and my favorite, he was the Lakers' director of strength and endurance. Gunnar Peterson, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me on here, and I appreciate that big lead up. I mean, I would say it made me feel old, but the squats made me feel old yesterday, so we're good. We're good on that. We're good on that front.
I love it. Well, I got to just right out of the gate. I mean, I got to hear you talk a little bit about your experience with the Lakers. That must have been really, really cool. You got a ring with them, correct?
I did. 2020 ring. I had a lot of fun at the Lakers. Obviously, it's an unbelievable organization from top to bottom, from Jeannie, Tim Harris, Linda Rambis, Rob Pelinka, all the way down to, let's go all the way down to the weight room, to the strength staff. I had some great guys with me, Chatton Hill, Ed Strite. Ed's still there running it, holding it together now, and just everybody I worked with. It's a great organization. It's a lot of fun. The travel in the NBA is no joke. I'm still amazed when anybody gets a road win, because what you go through to get to that arena on the road is a lot. And I'm sure some players are like, yeah, it's no big deal. But it is. And if you think about what it's doing to your system and sleeping in a different bed and the time changes and the food differences, and you get a road win in the NBA, I mean, be proud. Be proud.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually interesting because, you know, everybody, the public sees the games, they see the glitz and the glamour, but they don't see just the travel alone. I mean, that's a really interesting point. I mean, most people, you know, the idea of getting on a plane and going to another city, being there for a few days and going and just being on the move like that.
But it's not for hold. It's not two things. As a rule, you travel after a game. So that means you're traveling at night. Which means your sleep schedule's interrupted, and it's not for a few days. In the NBA, you get there and you're gone, unless, you know, certain cities you stay over, and maybe the nicer cities, maybe if it's an East Coast swing or West Coast swing during the winter, or during, you know, you're somewhere where you can benefit from nicer weather. Maybe you'll stay over, but as a rule, you don't, because there are 2, 3, 4 games a week, and it's just hit it, move, hit it, move, hit it, move. So those guys, I mean, not only are they tremendous athletes, but it's just their physical constitution and mentally staying involved, staying engaged. They're watching film, they're playing different guys, they're remembering different tendencies. There's a lot of things that go into that. So it's a hell of a sport. I mean. And I know there are other sports. I'm not discounting any other sports, you know.
Sure.
But talking about the one that I've been involved in, and you see that and you just go, good for you guys, man.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, your job was to keep them in top condition. With that type of a schedule, talk to us about where they would start off the season and where they would end, and some of the stuff that you would do to kind of keep them from, you know, obviously physically and, you know, mentally burning out.
Well,
wearing down.
There's preseason, there's in-season, there's postseason. So it's going to depend on each guy. You know, sometimes guys at the end of the season, they're gone and they don't want to see you till beginning of the following season, or they have somewhere and I can understand that. I don't think you can't take that personally. And you have some guys who hang around for a little bit, or they come in and out in the off season, and then you have them during the season. And the goal is to find a way to make sure that they maintain strength and conditioning. That's why the department's called that, throughout the schedule of preseason, 82 games, and postseason, God willing, or schedule willing. It's tough. That postseason's no joke, and how you keep them going. We did strength and conditioning with each guy. We had individual programs, same as I do with my clients. We had individual programs for every single player. I don't know how other clubs run it, but that's what we did. And you're dealing with strengths, weaknesses, likes, dislikes, and you have to factor in minutes played, rest gotten or not gotten, and then you look at pre-game activations, sometimes post-game work. If they didn't get enough minutes, how are you going to make sure that they stay conditioned? And you have some guys who are so diligent. Now, I'll give you an example. JaVale McGee, our center at the time when I was there, JaVale, if he didn't feel like he was getting what he needed in the game from a conditioning standpoint, he would look behind the bench at me and go like this, which meant we're lifting after the game, even though we did a pregame activation and we may have lifted at shoot around that morning. And so you'll go, let me get this right, JaVale. You had shoot around, you did your individual work, we lifted, we did a pregame activation, you played X number of minutes, whether it was a lot or a little, and because of how you judge your own performance, we're going to tack on a lift. And the answer is yes, and that's why I think he's 3-time champion so far, and maybe on his way to another one, who knows. But guys like that are the reason that those high bars are set.
Yeah. And I love that you say that because, as we know, we're obviously pretty deep into understanding the body works. The general public say, oh, yeah, everybody's different. But you're talking about everybody's different at like the highest level. So when you say you're individualizing, so you're looking at how somebody recovers. Talk to us about some of the differences in plans that you'd create for people, and I shouldn't say people, these players that are so top notch.
Wait, you can't just have like a 265 individual roll into camera like this and not announce it. It's like, you can't pretend. You can't pretend that didn't just happen.
I was driving a little fast and got a speeding ticket. Sorry.
Yeah, Nick likes to drive too fast. But Gunnar, sorry, you had me so drawn in about what you were saying. What's up, brother? Mm-hmm. How are you? You had me go. I mean, what you're talking about was so cool. Honestly, I saw Nick show up, and I was going to say Nick's here, but then I just totally got in zone with what you're saying and asked the next question. Sorry.
Well, no, you're good. So you look at those guys. I mean, just to stay with JaVale as the example. They're dealing with injury or no injury or overuse or excessive use or movement patterns that you have to make sure, like, we groove that movement pattern, but you don't want to overdo that. And if all the running is in one direction, should we reverse that just to make sure that everything works in both directions, right? If you're working with a golfer or a baseball player, you can't just train in the way that they swing. You have to work the other way. It doesn't mean they're going to be switch hitters, but it means the body has to work both ways. Because if you develop the strength only in one direction, you're really going to highlight a weakness. And at some point, to me, when there's a disparity between strength and weakness, you're setting the timer on when an injury is going to happen. Depending on how grave that injury is going to depend on what brings it on. But you just look and go, let's do both directions. Let's do both sides. We do a lot of unilateral work. We do a lot of foot position. Not everything is neutral. It's kickstand. It's staggered. It's split, because that is real life. That is sport. Yeah. It's on a lot of number. Yeah. Of course, you have to hit the balance and a number of different surfaces, right? Because everybody goes, well, they're on a hardwood surface. Okay, but they're also coming down on another guy's foot when they go for a rebound. They're also turning, stepping on something. Maybe their shoe rolls. You can remember back, the one that comes to mind is Jon Andersen when he was at Duke and how his foot rolled in that shoe. Like, you got to, not that you can prevent, but I just saw a guy's post the other day. He showed himself running. It looked like what was a marathon or half marathon, and he rounded a corner, stepped on a curb, and rolled his ankle. And then he showed a number of different clips from workouts before that, where he was on a BOSU, a wobble board, a slant board, the apex shaped slant board, and he's training in inversion, eversion, and you go, wow. He said training or luck. And you just look at that, who's to say? But I would say the way I would handle it is if there's a way to preempt or a way to possibly set up so that's not a problem, I'm going to add in a couple sets of that. That's not going to hurt me to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's time well spent.
So, the people in general obviously think they know what working hard is. As you and I were joking on the phone, the celebrities outwork most of the people that think they work hard, but we're talking about NBA players at the highest level. Give us an example just so that, people can truly understand the type of work that one of these guys is putting in. What's a day look like, say, on a hard training day?
Well, they'll come into the facility. If you're looking at in season, they'll come into this facility. They'll probably go to the training room and have some mobility work done, some stim work done, anything done to address something that may be bothering them or something that they are that they don't want to bother them in the future. Then there'll be some on-court work, and this can go in any order. There'll be some on-court work individually with a coach. Then there'll be a workout in the weight room with the strength coach. And then there'll be practice, and then there'll be a game. Obviously, the practice is going to be less than, it may just be a walkthrough or a shoot around on a game day. And also when they get to the arena for game day, they're going to go on court and do their one-on-one work with their position-specific coach, and then they're going to play. And how many minutes they play obviously is up to them. And the time for all of those things, shortens and lengthens per player, per year, per game. But there are a lot of things they do. People think they just show up, go to practice, and go to a game. It's way more involved. It's way more. And then you look at how do you fuel properly for all that?
Yeah.
Like how do you fuel pre-practice? How do you fuel pre-game? How do you fuel post-game? When are you supplementing? What are you supplementing with? Is it adequate? Is it proper? You're on the road. Can you get what you need? Can you get what you want? And they're also young guys who have other things pulling at them. So, do they get to, when they're in their hometown, do they get to go home with the family? Do they get to go out with a friend? Do they get to have a beer? Are they old enough to have a beer? There are a lot of things that factor in, and you go, you're over 35, you're over 40, so you're thinking, well, I could easily just say I'm not having anything from the start of the season to the end of the season. Maybe, but that's not real life. I look at some of these people doing interviews, and you look at guys in. I specifically look at the individual athlete sports, right? Like skiing, tennis, boxing. You see these guys speaking, and you realize that guy's 23 years old. And when I was 23, I was looking for my keys. Like literally, you go. How he's so poised. He had the discipline to stick with this and to think, well, they have a team around them. Yeah, a lot of people have a team around them. That doesn't guarantee that they, stay coloring within the lines. So it's I just say hats off and credit to all these people instead of tearing them down. How could he do that? How could he do that publicly? How could he make that mistake? And you go, well, you hope that the people around him would help him not do it, or at least not get in trouble for doing it. But you just go, he's still a young guy with a lot of temptation. Bill Burr does a great bit on that in one of his comedies about all the temptations. You'll never know the temptation that is floated around and pulling at these guys all the time. And when they don't take the bait, great. And when they do, we just bury them instead of saying, I get it. Yeah, young guy. It's like I tell. I have 5 kids, but I tell my 6-year-old specifically, your job is to get in trouble right now. I'm not mad at you. That's your job. You're supposed to get in trouble now. My job is to correct you, punish you, keep you in line. Over time, your job description will change. Mine will too. And then somebody else's job will be to get in trouble. It'll be your kid. That's what it'll be. And then you'll have to correct them. But right now, I expect you to get in trouble. So we're taking these young athletes and we're expecting them not to do what we think most other young men of the same age are going to do. That's a lot of responsibility.
Oh God, yeah. And like you said, some things pulling at them, that's being pretty polite. I mean, you've got your, Hey, here comes Ak. Now we're all here. There we go.
There we go.
Sorry, Gunnar.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like I'm in the wrong weight class?
Because you got big, and bigger.
I love it.
Maybe I should just sit like you guys and lean in.
Lean into the camera, brother. That's it.
That's close. That's pretty
Fuck
good.
you guys. Who's big now?
I love it. That's good shit, brother. So you had mentioned earlier about obviously the fueling properly. I imagine, talk to us about the type of fueling that one of these guys, and we're talking about, like you said, they're young, they're big, and they're working all day on most days. What type of intake are we looking at for some of these guys?
I mean, that's
where do they get it?
That's going to be case by case. I will say, at least when I was in the NBA, there is nutrition, there is food, there are calories everywhere. There's supplementation available. Everything's NSF, so there's nothing shady going on. And you turn a corner, even when you're on the road in an opposing team's arena, and there's a table. There are things that you have. We provide certain things as a strength department. We had with us. We always brought equipment to train. We had a strength trunk on the road, so we had, sometimes you don't get access to a weight room, so we use what we had in a hallway, wherever we would do it for activations or pregame lifts, and we would bring with us, protein pregame, electrolytes, that type of thing. But then on the road, you have food, and we put together a menu, and they provide it. But what if the guy's not in the mood for that? What if you're supposed to be salmon and tomatoes or whatever your thing is? Rice, quinoa, some complex carb, and then some type of protein, but you're just not in the mood for that. So, how do you make that work? Especially you're a young guy, maybe that's not what you feel like having. So there are definitely options there, but it's not easy. I mean, again, they're young guys. It's not like when you're that age and you're finishing up college and you go, hey, I feel like Chinese tonight. Hey, I feel like Mexican tonight. Hey. It's not always there. And then also right after the game, you're out. Like, it's shower, grab your DOP kit, your bag's already loaded on the bus, and we're going. And there's food on the plane, but it might not be exactly what you want. So they have to make it work, and portions aren't always controlled. So they have to make sure they get adequate calories. They are burning calories at an insane rate.
Oh, I imagine. What would some of the guys that are working the hardest, the biggest guys, what type of calorie burn would you say that some of these guys are knocking out on a daily basis?
Oh, hard to say because you're not with them all day long. I read years ago, I think, wasn't it Michael Phelps that said he was taking in 10,000 calories a day? I don't know that these guys are that high, but they're definitely up there taking a lot. I mean, they're also, a lot of them are bigger human beings. You're talking about guys, 6'4", 6'6", 6'8", 7 feet, and they're young. So, everything's revving high. So it's not like they're going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go, oh, I'm so worried I'm going to gain weight. That's an extra 600 calories. No. That is not the concern.
I'm 54 and I'm still eating over 6,000 calories a day.
Yeah, but it's calculated, and when you take it in, and you're measuring, and you know what you're in.
Yeah.
So this, and it's not, I would imagine, it's not always on the fly.
No, it's pretty planned out. But on the fly, like when we were doing the TV show, that was almost all on the fly because of our filming schedule and stuff like that. And I mean, we just said, hey, we got to eat every so many hours and this and that. And before we perform, we need to eat like 2 hours before so our stomach's not full. So I would imagine it had to be something similar for the professional athletes. Yeah,
it is. And there is a strength staff. There is an athletic training staff. We do liaise with food providers on the road, and it's mapped out. It's not like at the end of the game we're making phone calls and having stuff delivered. It's not Postmates. It's definitely planned. But it's not you in there. You don't know where it came from. You're not controlling it. So it's less than perfect. It may be 95, but it could be a 75. And then you go, well, 75 is a C, right? So now we're allowing or accepting a C performance. You wouldn't accept a C performance on the court. So you got to go, let's try and keep everything else as controlled and as regimented as possible so that we can set these guys up for success. And they set themselves up for success. Like, they know what to do.
Yeah, right on. Well, that's a lot of real cool information about working with the Lakers. But let's go to some. You've worked with some pretty amazing individuals. Like, goodness, I read off a handful of people at the show. I'll do it again. And let's like Mike Tyson, Tom Brady, Sylvester Stallone, the Kardashians, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, and there's a lot more to it. But I mean, the thing that I love, and we were talking about before the show, is you're like, these celebrities will kick the shit out of just about anybody that thinks they work hard. Kind of give us a little.
Not that different from the pro athlete in that there are people vying for their time, their attention, their energy. If you look at it on just that simple level, all day long, like phone calls, emails, texts, appearances, fittings, readings. Their own individual work, whether it's to hone their craft or to dial themselves in physically so that they can present themselves properly at the time of a shoot. Like you go, if you take a bodybuilder, right? Okay, you know when the show is, you know when you're going to travel, you know when the prejudging is. If you look at an actor, but a bodybuilder, a lot of them, especially at the higher levels, can be. It can be a single-minded focus. If you look at the actor who has to do a shirt-off scene that's going to be recorded on film, and that picture is going to go up every time anyone talks about their body, their love life, if they get arrested, anything, that picture is what's going to go up. So you go, they have to back it out and time everything so that they peak, if you look at it as a peaking, which I do, and they're doing that while they're taking their kids to school, while they're doing other scenes, while they're traveling to a new location, while they're switching from day shoots to night shoots. And I would say, again, hats off to those people. That's a lot of balls in the air, and so you hear this a lot from people. Well, if I had a trainer and a chef, well, if I had this and that, no, you wouldn't. Period. And that's you would not. And I
love that. No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't. I mean, maybe you'd give it a shot, but would you do it year in, year out? I mean, could you keep presenting that physique on screen every single movie? I don't know. I mean, if you could. I mean, maybe you're in the wrong job. Chloe's show, Revenge Body, was based on that. Here's a trainer. Here's a nutritionist. Here's a food delivery service. What do you got? And there were people who got thrown off the show. There were people who quit the show. They just couldn't hack it. And you think, they're hacking it with their life. They're pulled, sure, in their number of directions as well. But I would venture to guess that they were not in as high demand as Chloe, who's got meetings and filming her other show and her family. And so you just think, you got to respect what they go through. And people say, oh, you're kissing the celebrity's ass. No, I'm not. I was right there courtside. I see what they do and how they do it. It's pretty remarkable. When you see, go back, take Sly Stallone. You go, how many films did he do where he kept showing up in shape? If I say to you, I don't know your age, but if I say you guys, your average age between you guys is 40, right? Maybe. If I say more, okay. But if I say to you, Rocky 3, Rambo 3, Rocky Balboa.
He looks great in every movie. Shit.
But you immediately go to a visual of his physique in that film. And then if you look at the years of those films, those are separated literally by decades. Yeah. And yet the guy kept showing up with a physique that was memorable to you, people in the physique world. You go, how did he, that's damn. And it's not just Sly. Look at Arnold, same thing. Look at Van Damme for a number of years. And there's some others who didn't do that, and you go, maybe that's why they weren't, or they delivered on a different level. But from delivering from a cinematic standpoint as well as a physique standpoint, that's a lot of baggage.
You remember when Rocky III came out? It was just mind blowing how good shape Stallone was in. You know, but then that was like the first one he was in ripping. It just kept getting better. It was like
Rocky IV. Then Rocky
I know. It was like he just kept getting better and better. It's almost like the older he got, as he his muscle matured, he got more gnarly veins. He looked better as he got older. Man, it was totally awesome. Straight savage. Yeah. You know, and
now look at him in Tulsa King. He's still walking down the street with his traps popping, ready to jack you up. I mean, you can't deny what he's bringing to the equation here, and it keeps raising the bar. He's 76 years old. Let's not forget that.
Is he really 76 right now? Holy shit! I thought it was in the early 70s. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've met him twice. I met him once competing at the Arnold. And then I met him at when he was filming Get Carter. I ran a club downtown, and he came into the club to take a break from filming. So I've met him twice there. We actually ruined one of the nights of his filming because he ended up getting glitter all over the suit and had to go back and change, and they shut filming down for that night.
That's hilarious.
So talk to us about like Tom Brady. You know, this is a guy who has just completely destroyed all the standards of what should be happening as an NFL quarterback. You know, in terms of his age, he's still killing it. He must have some amazing work ethic.
Yeah, I bet. I worked with Tom for a number of years after his knee surgery. He's always had a guy, Alex Guerrero, who does myofascial work and more hands-on, but he did the strength with me for years after, and you just look at somebody who locks it in early in the off season. One time he was in my gym and he still had a Band-Aid on his arm from the AFC Championship game. Like, that's pretty early to be back in the gym. And you just go, again, hats off, and no surprise to why you've had the longevity. But his work with Alex is known, and from a work ethic, from a consistency standpoint, it's as legendary as the number he puts up,
Yeah, and I love his story because he started off, I mean, he barely, he was kind of overlooked getting into the NFL, and then he got his shot and just
number 199 in the draft. That means you chose 198 people before you picked him.
Yeah, that's crazy. What was it? Bledsoe got hurt. He steps in and just never looked back. And
you see a lot of quarterbacks today stepping in when somebody gets hurt, and there'll be talk about they'll win 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, and you go, is he the next guy? Is he the next guy? Is he the next guy? And then some of them do well, but his record, like you tell me who's going to break that. I worked with Pete Sampras, the tennis player, for a number of years, and Pete broke Rod Laver's record for majors. Right, he had 14 majors. He won his 14th, and then he stepped away. When Pete stepped away, Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer didn't have one major between them, and now you look at what they've done, and that record that Pete broke of Rod Laver's, I want to say that record that stood for over 20 years. So you look at what these guys are doing. Djokovic just won on it was a Sunday in Australia in his 22nd to tie Rafa for 22. Pete had 14, unheard of, unparalleled. Like, and now these guys are doing that. So you go, who's the quarterback who's going to win? Tom has 7 rings. Who's the guy who's playing that has 2, that has 3, and how many years do they have left? And are they set up? Are they in a position to do what he's done? It's hard to imagine someone breaking. I mean, I know records are made to be broken, but it's hard to imagine someone wresting that title from him. I can't see it, but you would assume it's going to happen, right?
I see that being ungodly difficult to do because
that's what I think.
You have 300-pound guys trying to smash you.
Actively trying to.
Lightning fast 300-pound guys,
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing with the NFL.
300-pound guys.
You know, you see people walk. Oh, that's that guy. He's a little guy. That little guy is still 6'3", 250 pounds. It's just it's so out of scale because people don't know. They've never been around these guys in person. You know,
you watch a game in the NBA. Look at Russell Westbrook. He looks like a little guy. Russ is 6'4".
Yeah.
and you look on the court and you're like, he doesn't look that big. He's 6'4".
Yeah.
I'm 5'10", maybe. He's 6'4", and he looks like big people with bad intentions.
Yeah. Talk to us about Mike Tyson. That must have been, that he working with him.
That was so great, so fun, so eye-opening. And to see, I worked with a couple boxers. I worked with Michael Moore. I worked with Vernon Forrest. Mike Tyson, that's just a different kind of human being. I mean, the focus, the commitment. It was road work in the mornings. It was boxing gym, and it was road work in the morning, boxing gym middle of the day.
And he ran quite a bit in the morning. It wasn't a little jog. He did some miles in the morning, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we did a lot of walking in the mornings too. And then boxing gym, stretching, and then strength and additional cardio in the evenings. You know, for 3.5 months leading up to the fight.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
That's definitely commitment. Yeah.
Say it again?
I said that's definitely commitment.
Right. A lot of time you're putting in. And you're in, sometimes locations where the only access you have to other people other than the people in your camp is the phone. And people go, well, that's good. You should be limited. Okay, maybe. But again, a young man, who's got ideas and thoughts. And you look at the stuff he's into now, he's got so much stuff going on. It's not like all those ideas just percolated today. Like, that's always going on. And
what phase in his career? What phase in his career were you working with him? Like what year, what era?
I worked with him for the Brian Nielsen fight. So it was right after 9/11 in Denmark. And Brian Nielsen at the time, I'm going back, so you can fact check me, but off the top of my head, I want to say Brian Nielsen was 66-0, had never been knocked down. And he was the European champion. And some people go, he's a European champion. I'm like, right? I'm not 66-0 against my brother. Like, 66-0 is a hell of a record. And and Mike hit him with just everything. And the dude was a beast. And eventually he went down, and he went down, and he went down. And then I think he didn't answer the bell in the 7th. And I don't have notes here. I don't have, but that's what I'm remembering. Mike just brought it, and you're focused, you're far away from home, and it was a weird card. There were a ton of fights under it, maybe like 11 fights under it, maybe more, and the crowd had been there. It was like a festival almost, and they were loud and ornery, and it was late, and we had been in that we had been back there for a long time, and he just came out and went to work. That's why he is who he is.
Yeah.
All those guys, the fact that they keep answering the bell, whether it's the actor for the shirt off scene, whether it's the NBA guy, 3 cities, 3 days on the road, 3 wins back to back to back, or the fighter that, stays relatively isolated for X amount of weeks and months, and then at a not random, but a not a home location, has to step out. And I do focus mitts with people as a conditioning drill, and I always tell them, make no mistake about this, you're no fighter, you're not a boxer, and I'm also not a boxing coach. We are doing this simply for conditioning. And you can see them as they start to find the patterns and the rhythms of the combinations, they feel pretty good. And you can see now they get a little cocky, and then you go, just remember, no one's throwing back at you. Yeah. So you got to give the boxing guys and the MMA guys credit. You're not just going out there, knocking out your little combinations. There's no one coming for you. When you're training in the gym, when you're training with a trainer, my kind of trainer, But those guys and girls in the ring, that's just next level gnarly, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
your
insane.
right? Like parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system. You're on. You're like, that's fight or flight all day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. You say, just remember, nobody's throwing a punch back at you.
Right. When they start to get cocky,
It's so simple.
you just want to get, because you want to keep them in check. Like, it's like the people who took Billy Blank's Tybo years ago. That's phenomenal. Good for you that you got up off the couch and did something. But just because you took Tybo for X amount of weeks doesn't mean you can step out in the parking lot and if somebody tries to take your watch, don't think you're ready to go. Like, just hand them the watch. Like, don't be crazy. You were punching
I can tell you right
the
now,
air.
I've had the pleasure of learning some jiu-jitsu from Frank Mir.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you right now, he would have me get into positions where I had the advantage, like an absolute advantage. And because he wasn't going to face anybody as strong as I was, he'd be like, just don't let me out of this. And I would hold him and move and do stuff and try to counter and stuff like that for all I'm worth. And then at about 2 minutes, he'd had enough. And I'm just like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm out. And freaking, I'm tapping him and going, okay, yeah, we're good. Let go. Anytime that man wanted, he could just flip me over and make me tap like that. And it's unbelievable.
Nick, you wasn't trying hard enough.
Oh, yes, I was. Yes, I was.
That's what they do. That's their job. And the minute you think that, I've done this for a little bit, I got this. No, you don't.
No.
You absolutely don't.
Yeah, and that's, because you've kind of led, and the common theme here is the average person seems to think that they understand what's going on, but they really have no clue, no matter what we're talking about. We're talking about being in shape for a movie. We're talking about play. It's like there's so much more to it than what people see, but people are the first ones say, oh, yeah, it must be easy when you have your bags carried for you. Fuck. No,
I've told my kids since they were young, like we used to go to NBA games a lot, and they would go, and especially if I had anybody I was working with was on the floor, right? And, God forbid they were having a bad night, and you'd hear someone in the stands yell something nasty, and my kids, protective of the guy, because I'd usually had them meet them or something, and protective of, indirectly that's associated with me, although you can't, as the trainer, I don't think you can take the credit or the blame, really. And my kids would look back in the stands and, they'd hear somebody yell, you suck. And my kids would look back and they go, Daddy, does he suck? And I go, how could he suck? If every team carries a full roster, there are 450 guys in the league. And except for a few guys maybe on crazy contracts in other countries, anybody whoever picked up a basketball, anybody anywhere in the world would want to be in the NBA. That's like, right? So there's 450 of them. By definition, he doesn't suck. So you hear that and you think, that guy has no idea what's going on. He gets paid to do better. Right. And you never made a mistake at your job. You never had a rough day at your job. You never had 2 typos and something you had to turn in at your job. Come on, guys. So
how much do you think the talk shows affected that? How much do you think the sports talk shows affect how athletes get treated on the court and then during the game by fans?
That's a great yeah, you should work on a podcast. That's a great question. I definitely think it colors the views. And I actually spoke to a woman today who trained with me, and I was talking to her about sports because I know she's a little bit into it. And she was talking to me about the upcoming Super Bowl and who she likes and who she doesn't and why. And I said, interesting, because I don't have that strong of an opinion either way. I learned a long time ago from somebody in the league, it's hard to root for laundry, right? Like it's hard to pull for a team when at any given moment a business decision could affect a trade or a benching or whatever, and they know that they're not setting themselves up for success in a game because they're setting themselves up for a business for something that nothing about. So I bear that in mind. But this woman said, because of something that a guy had said in an interview. She heard a clip, her word today, of something that one of the quarterbacks had said, and she really liked him. And I didn't jump on this, but my thought was, you heard a clip of an interview one time from a guy, and that makes you completely anti the other guy and all for this guy. Wow, that's an easy sell. Or that could work against you. What if you heard a clip you didn't like and then you just turn on the dude? So, I mean, interesting to see when she's watching the game how engaged she becomes pro the guy she likes and contra the other guy. I don't know. So to your question, I think that definitely can influence and swing the fan sentiment big time.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like what Elon is going through right now with Tesla in terms of their sales and stuff like that. Same concept.
Yeah. Very true. Nick, great question, brother. Shit.
Thanks. I have my moments, even with the migraine.
Oh, I love it. So, brother, talk to us a little bit about, how this whole thing started for you. I mean, clearly you've worked with some of the, the A-listers, whether it be celebrities, athletes, all the above. Talk to us about your journey. How did this whole thing start off for you?
The training thing, I backed into it. Someone once asked me on my way out of a gym in the morning if they could train with me, was the question. And, I kind of looked at him like, yeah, we can, sure, we'll work out. And then he goes, what do you charge? And I clearly hadn't understood the question. Was
this down in Venice, or was this in Venice?
No, this was in West Hollywood, right off of on Santa Monica Boulevard, right off La Cienega. I used to live right there, and I was leaving the gym one morning, and the kid I worked out with hadn't shown up, and I trained alone. You know that thing when you're waiting for your training partner? This is before phones, right? You're kind of looking at the door and you're like, should I do another set? I don't want to get too far ahead of it. It used to be like meeting a buddy at the movies, right? Like you're sitting there, your buddy's late, and you're like, do I eat the popcorn? Do I wait? Do I leave? I want us to see it together. Is he coming? I'm missing the movie.
Eat the popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. 6,000 calories a day right there. And so I did that, and then a friend of his started training, and then so I saw those two people before my real job, air quotes, and then a woman started working out in the evening, and I realized I was making more money training a few people a few times a week than I was at a full-time job. Wow. So I left the job. And then I don't want to say I never looked back, because of course when you're doing it on your own, you're always looking back and did I do that right? And should I have gone there? And what do I do next?
What year roughly would this be? Just so we're kind of on a timeline. Pre-cell phones. So obviously we know we're in the in the 90s or something.
Let's go 91, 2, 3,
one
right
or two
in there.
Or three, early 90s. Yeah.
I've been doing this 31 years, so right there, yeah.
Okay, right. So this is gotcha.
Yeah,
30 years ago.
I think the cell phone was not long after that, but it was the kind that was. This is going to make you're going to probably Google this. This was the kind that was bolted into your car.
Yeah, the one that was like a shoebox. It took two hands to hold it.
You jacked it up out of the cradle, right?
Yeah, and then shortly thereafter came the two-hander. Like the two-hander where you couldn't hold it with one hand.
Correct. The brick, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was then, and then I played cat and mouse in that gym because clearly I wasn't employed in the gym. And then I had a chiropractor who I knew who sent me a couple people in home, and I was driving all over God's green earth, listening to news radio and drinking distilled water and eating chicken breasts and yams that I had prepared in my igloo cooler, and I was becoming weird because I was spending way too much time on my own. And then I said, I got to find a place where I can lock this down and not drive around. I was driving 100, 125 miles a day. It was just insane. The take all comers. Hey, I've got somebody who wants to work with you in Pacific Palisades. No problem. I'll take them. Hey, can you do 2 o'clock? Boom. And then I'm back to Sherman Oaks, and then I'm back to Beverly Hills, and then I'm back. And it was that kind of stuff. But I didn't. I was happy to have the work. I was loving it. I was feeling myself. I was listening to William Kramer, from Ball State University, cassettes from the NSCA library. Anything I could get my hands on, I was listening to and reading and training anywhere I could. I knew gyms all over town, and if I had a 2-hour break, I'd slide in somewhere and, I'm doing back now. It was that kind of thing. So it was good. I mean, honestly, zero regrets of, there's many people climbing the mountain as there are ways up there. So I have no regrets of how I did it.
And so then
and still climbing.
Yeah, of course. Never stop, baby. Never stop.
Always.
Exactly.
So then it just kind of parlayed. Next thing you know, you're working with you got Sylvester Stallone asking you to get him ready for Rocky IV type scenario.
They all come from different places, and people think, well, you get one celebrity and then that opens the floodgates. It doesn't. That's like saying, you start training a lawyer, next thing you know, you're going to have 15 lawyers in your gym, God forbid. But it doesn't work.
Sounds
like
dangerous.
Yeah, but they come. People all over, not just celebrities, are referred by and follow the referral of people who are in their inner circle, people that they trust. So they can be referred by a doctor, they can be referred by an assistant, they can be referred by a peer, they can be sent by their boss. It can be a spouse. Those are actually not my favorite people to train. Someone who was given a gift certificate from their spouse usually comes in somewhat begrudging, because they could interpret that as, my spouse doesn't find me attractive in my current state. So, and you do get those people, and you're like, your wife's so nice. She's like, no, she's not. She's not that nice. She knows I'm fat. And you go, well, she never said that to me. Well, she said that to me when she gave me the gift certificate. I go, okay, well, here we go. And sometimes it's short circuits, because they're coming in with the mindset of they're not their spouse. It just comes down to that. That's just what it comes down to. So those aren't your favorite to train, but again, you take all comers, and you hope that they'll judge you based on you and not based on how they ended up meeting you.
Yeah, right on. So you just basically got it started, just kept chopping on it, and just kept growing, and off you went. Yeah.
Well, look, LA is I'm sure you guys know, it's a fairly transient town, right? And you look at something and it's a restaurant one day, and you drive by 3 days later and it's a shoe store. It's hard to. What do they count on? And obviously there are some things that last forever, and they become landmarks or iconic. And the people that are looking for the services that I provide, they need something that they can count on, right? They want something that they can go, okay, that's there. That's consistent. He's there. I look the same. The temperature in the gym is the same. The parking's the same. The music's the same. They know the type of workout it's going to be, and you can provide a service that they can count on. It's that thing of it's like Cheers, right? Everybody knows your name. You walk in, you don't get bothered by anybody, but they do acknowledge you, and they do know that you want water without ice, or that you're always going to have the number 2 special or whatever it is. So you try to provide a service that's going to get them where they want to go, but also that they enjoy the process of going through. And I think in LA that a lot of guys set out probably with that intention, but the city moves fast, right? And
yeah.
You can open a gym and be out of business real quick there, and rent is prohibitive, and parking is hard to come by, and reliable people to work with. Knock on wood, I had some good guys and girls that I worked alongside of, whether it was before I had my own gym or when I did have my own gym, and that support. You can't downplay how important that crew around you is, whether it's the person running the gym, the person helping you clean up and open in the mornings, or another trainer that I go, when I was with the Lakers, I still had my gym and I traveled. So that's a lot of road trips. And I'd say, I'm going to be gone for 3 days. I'm going to be gone for 10 days. I'm going to be gone for a week. And then, you know, they've got to be comfortable. They can't lose steam. And I'd say, you know, Brad Siskin, a buddy, a fellow trainer, a coworker, I'd say Brad's going to cover you while I'm gone. And you know, maybe that's not their first choice, but they realize Brad's great at what he does too, and it's going to be different for sure. You know, it's like I tell my kids, it's different when Daddy puts you to bed than when Mommy to put you to bed. But either way, you're going to go to sleep, and so you're going to have a good night's sleep. So, providing that consistent environment for people who need that and rely on that to continue their journey. That's, I think, the key to longevity, at least in LA.
Well, I mean, you're very successful. Clearly, I mean, I believe you're in the top 10 trainers in the country and a few magazines. What would you attribute? Like, if you had a couple of simple rules of success, what would you think that if you were to give some kind of blanket rules of success, things that help you that listeners could be picking up on? What would you recommend? What were some of the things that helped you become successful?
Return texts, emails, phone calls. Even if it's at the end of the day, and you go, I always go down to the beginning of that day. You know, it says yesterday and your messages and the one after that, and I make sure that I answered all of them. Even if I write, hey, the day got ahead of me, I'll hit you tomorrow. At least you acknowledge the person and you don't just leave them out there. If somebody says you don't owe anybody a response. No, you don't. But if you're putting yourself out there to be sought after and then they seek you and you don't deliver, that's just bizarre.
That's a great piece of advice right there, because it's so simple but yet so effective and shows that person that your consistency of being there for them is literally on a daily basis if they reach out. That probably is extremely overlooked, I would imagine, and today as a whole, you know?
Yeah, remember also, you're in a service business. For me, this doesn't apply to all business, but you're in a service business, not a product business. So you have to consider the service side, right? If all things being equal, if you use a restaurant analogy, great meal here, great meal here. In this restaurant, the maitre d', the waiter is a dick. The parking is difficult, the price is higher or lower. That's going to skew going here where there's a different kind of reception. Parking is easy. So think about the service, not just the product. Obviously, the product's important. But again, like I said, all things being equal, if the workout is the workout is the workout, what's the overall experience? And that starts when they pull in. So you have to groom that and hone that. And your thing may be down and dirty. We don't provide any service, because that is a service in and of itself. Like that's a vibe. So is that who you want to be? And then piggybacking on that, who do you want to train, and are you setting yourself up to work with that demographic? Like you say, I want to work with kids. Well, are you in a retirement home? Because now you've screwed yourself. You know what I mean? I want to work with athletes. You're somewhere that the sports is not a focus, and it's more of a business community, or it's a place where, you know, people are coming off of illness or whatever. You're not training those people. That's more of a rehab setting. So are you in a place to work with the people that you want to work with, or that you say you want to work with? Another one, I just talked to a lady about this on a completely different subject, but I brought it back to training, as one does. Do you have an elevator pitch? Like, if you are in that elevator, and I do this when I speak to trainers, and I say, what kind of training do you do? Let's say you're sitting there, all diesel like this, and somebody goes, you know, what do you do? And you go, I'm a trainer. And they go, what kind of training do you do? What is your, assuming you're thinking potential client, what is your answer? Don't try to make that shit up on the fly. You're not that good. What is your answer? You have to have that and have rehearsed that out loud to know that those words are going to land. And don't go, you know, fat loss. What does that mean? You have to be able to, in short sentences, what ultimately would be pull quotes if it were in the print world, paint a picture so that person can envision what working out with you would be like. And then they go, oh, they're intrigued, or they go, oh, that's not for me. What do you do? Don't also, as a trainer, you shouldn't sound like someone shoved a medical thesaurus up your ass. You shouldn't try to, don't get stuck with, I do peripheral hard action, predominantly acceleration. Shut up. You're going to lose the person. Like, break it down in a way, I do a combination of strength work as well as cardio intervals. We try to put things in an athletic context so that the better you move in the gym, that translates to moving better in real life. All right, and maybe that's not my elevator pitch. I haven't thought of it in a minute, but if that's what I'm going to say, at least you can envision sort of, maybe it's still a little gray, what we're going to do in the gym. Or you say, I focus on powerlifting, mostly deadlifts. Okay. And you're going to, that's going to split the room. No problem. But at least you did it the right way. So have an elevator speech, return texts, and make sure you're in the place to train the demographic that you claim you want to train.
Biggest mistake. What's the biggest mistake people are making? Obviously going polar opposite of what you just described.
Thinking there's a shortcut. I'm not saying there's not a fast way. Don't mistake a fast way for a shortcut. There are ways.
I'm going to use that, bro. That's good shit right there.
There are ways to get there definitely faster than wherever I am on the continuum. There are definitely ways to get there faster. But don't think there's a shortcut, because there's not. There's not. And you have to do the work, and you have to do the homework. You have to be ready for it when it comes at you. And if you think, it doesn't mean you can't kick back and watch a stand-up comedy or watch a sitcom or a movie, but you better be putting as much time into your, look, it's like college. You better be doing as much of your required classes as you are your electives. So I get that you want to watch this or go to that concert or do that. Great. But you also should read an article on walking backwards and why it's important for knee health, or taking XYZ supplement. I'm not saying you have to be fluent in all the health and wellness corners, but you have to know things in broad strokes, and you should have to think you can do it on your own is a big mistake. In my opinion, this is the age of specialization. If you say, I'm a trainer, I'm also a speed coach, I'm also a nutritionist, and I'm a hell of a massage therapist, I'm going to go, no, no, you're not. No, you can't be that good at all things. It's very, very tough. So pick one, like major in something, minor in something, that's great. And then become, dabble in the others. I can talk to you in broad strokes, nutrition, supplementation, but I'm not going to get down and dirty with it when I know there's somebody better. I'm going to happily refer you to that person so that you have what I think is the best in training and the best in nutrition and the best in speed work and the best in rehab, or body work when it comes to recovery stuff. I'm not going to try to do all that for you.
Yeah. I love it, brother. These are serious pearls. Those are serious pearls. Really cool. Well, shit, brother. I know we've had you here for almost an hour. I know that your time is valuable, but I got two more questions for you before
Let's do it.
Before we cut loose. And again, I know your time is valuable, so I appreciate the
No,
time.
thank you for having me. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. I knew this was going to be a great show. You're fun to listen to talk. This is good shit. So, all right. So you've had a really, so many experiences that you've shared with us, which is really, there's so many more we haven't heard about. So let's just remember the movie Back to the Future, the old DeLorean. You can get in that son of a bitch, and you can type in the time and the dates, and you can go back in time and you can talk to your younger version of yourself. How far do you go back, and what do you say to yourself?
I go back to
one piece of advice.
I go back to 1997. I interviewed for the Laker job with then general manager Mitch Kupchak, and I didn't get the job, and I don't actually think they even called me back. And I don't want to say I was distraught because my career, I was cooking along, but I was bummed because I really wanted it. And I would tell my younger self, don't be bummed. It's not your time. Just keep working. Just keep cranking. Because I got the job. I got the job in 2017. Head strength coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Same job I applied for in 1997.
10 years later.
Years.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, do a little math, John. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm here for you. Most trainers count on their fingers.
That's right. I don't have that many fingers, man.
Yeah, my shoes are off. That's what I would tell my younger self. That's where I would go in that DeLorean and say, don't, because I remember coming out of there, I had a 2-hour meeting with Mitch Kupchak, and I walked out. I don't want to say I thought I got the job, but I definitely thought it was a productive meeting. I enjoyed meeting him. I enjoyed being like, it was like I just started pulling back the curtain. I was excited. And it didn't happen till 2017, but it happened. So I would tell myself, if it doesn't happen, and I will have to tell myself that, tomorrow about something that doesn't happen when I want it to happen. Dude, chill out. It's going to happen. Or it might not, but something else is going to happen. And you have to use all those adages that remind you to stay in the game.
That's good shit. I like it. That's a good one. That's a real good one. Okay. So then the last question is, you've affected so many, you've had such a big impact on the people you work with. You've done so much. When all is over and you decide to hang this up and you're done, what is it that you want to be remembered for?
Being a good father and a good husband.
Wow. These are good fucking answers, brother.
This shit means nothing. I mean, it's cool and it's great, and I've been, super lucky to work with the people I've worked with and see what I've seen and been where I've been, and I feel like I set myself up for some of those successes, and I probably set myself up for some of the mistakes and the failures. None of that means anything. I
love it, brother. You know what we should do at some point? We should have.
You guys can't see this. I just started to tear up because I'm thinking about my kids. How I honestly need to sack up and cut it out right now.
Don't worry. I do it all the time.
It's the kids, man.
Totally understand.
It's the
Nick
kids.
Cries on the show all the time. Nick has cried on our show probably 10 times, so don't worry.
Right there, it's the kids and my wife. I want my wife to know how much I love her. I want my kids to know that every time I leave, and it's the crack of 4 a.m., 4:15 this morning, and I step out and it's 28 degrees and it's sort of raining, but it's not. It's snowing. It doesn't even know what it's doing out there. That I'm doing this because I want our family, to be that. I want my brother to be proud. I want my dad to go, my son kicks ass. I want my mom to say, that's my boy. Those are the things that, to me, move the needle. The rest are cool, and they're definitely like, toppings, and they're great. But that's not the meat of it.
Yeah. I fucking love it, brother. I love it. That's definitely one of the. That's a great answer. We had a lot of interesting answers to that question, but that was a good one, brother, for sure. So, well. That being said, man, thank you for your time. Nick Ock, do you have anything for Gunnar before we wrap this baby up?
No, it's just a pleasure, listening to you talk and getting a lot of knowledge in terms of like how to go about, whether you want to start a business or, pursue your goals and stuff like that. I think a lot of the audience would definitely get something from that.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Nick?
And then I got like a question, but it's probably like a 30-minute answer. So,
Nick, don't you have to eat something right about now?
I'm pretty darn hungry, so I will say that.
Aren't you behind on a meal?
Yeah, probably Akim more than me, but I will go back to eating 8,000 calories. In about
I was actually
too much.
I was actually late because I was actually waiting for my meals and eggs and stuff to get delivered. So.
I love it. So, well, that being said, man, thank you very much. Nick, do you have something? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask him, the tendon and connective tissue recovery, how much more important is that in training athletes than muscle recovery?
I think not just the recovery, I think the strengthening thereof.
And how much longer does it take for it to recover?
I definitely say it takes longer, and I think that's why when you look at injuries that happen, they happen at the joint. They don't happen in the nobody says I hurt my biceps. They say I hurt my biceps. They would say bicep without the S because they don't know, but it's always going to be at origin or insertion versus in the belly of the muscle, and you go, but that's the connective tissue wasn't ready. I maintain that. Especially guys, you see this when they start, lifting. The muscle's ready. The muscle can take overload. It can probably progress, but your connective tissue hasn't done the reps. You haven't put the time in. It takes longer to get it ready to handle the heavier load. So, pump the brakes, slow it down, let that develop, and equally as important, if not more so, like you said, let it recover. It has to recover, or you are courting injury. And that setback.
Why is no one talking about this in the industry? Nobody talks about this.
Because they want to talk about gains, and it's not sexy to talk about ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. They want to talk about muscles, and I get it. It's sexier. No one wants to talk about how certain movements that involve raising the lower extremity hits a lot of hip flex, a lot of psoas work, and they're like, this hits ab. Well, they say this hits stomach, and I'm like, the stomach's an organ, but we'll get up to that. But you go, no problem. But because it's not sexy to say hip flexors. It's sexy to say lower abs, and I go, well, if you look at it, it's just rectus abdomen. But again, another podcast, another time. But
I know, sorry.
So it doesn't. So connective tissue doesn't sell. It's not sexy. Muscle sells.
Yeah, brother.
What people need to realize.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. Please.
What people need to realize is that's where all your gains come from, long term.
Yeah.
So okay, go ahead, son.
Dude, I had a whole page of shit I was going to talk to you about, but we used just a fraction of it. So at some point, if you could find another hour for us, we'd love to have and continue the show at some point.
I'd love to.
Yeah, you're a fucking great guest. And, that being said, everyone, thank you for watching another edition of Legends of Iron. We always try to bring not only interesting shit in front of you, but helpful, inspiring. And Gunnar Peterson is dropping some serious pearls on here. So if you can't pick something up from this show, oh man, you got a problem. That being said, thank you for watching, everyone. We will see you next time. Gunnar, thank you very much, brother.
Thank you guys for having me on. I'll talk to you soon. I'll look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Right on.
Legends of Iron is brought to you by MuscleMeds.
You want to build some muscle? Some serious muscle? You want to pack on some beef, some serious beef? Well, you are in luck because MuscleMeds has developed carnivore beef isolate. 100% beef isolate. 350% more effective than steak. Sugar-free. The shit tastes great and it digests far better than whey. So you want to put on some beef? I'm talking serious beef. You better start eating some serious beef. Carnivore by MuscleMeds.